Hey, what's up? Kevlin here, and I have Petunia with me. It feels like it's been a while since I've talked to y'all. My voice still isn't great. It's about 90% back, so if I sound a little off, it's probably why. Anyways, I've done a few listings going over characters and thought it was time to do the Black Eagle students from Fire Emblem Three Houses, Three Hopes. I will be going over the characters you start with, so no other students, no staff, or DLC. Sorry, Monica. I mean, not really, but I am sorry to the gatekeeper. I'm going to rank them based on my experiences with them, so if the list doesn't line up with yours, that's a-okay. It's the internet, so... This is the internet. These are just based on my experiences and opinions. Things may change. Possible spoilers for any media involved. This isn't meant to offend anyone, and it's mostly made for fun. Now that we have all the normal stuff out of the way, let's begin. Starting off this list is Caspar. This guy radiates sugar-rushed little brother energy. He's always ready and raring to go, even if he doesn't actually know where he's going. I love the energy, but the lack of skill to back it up it's mind-boggling. Caspar is usually an axe unit, and like most axe units, he can hit hard, but has a really low accuracy. That's fine. But when pretty much anyone can swing anything, it's kind of unbalanced. I can give, say, Byleth or Petra an axe, and they will be leagues better in just a few levels. Of course, then we have the Empress herself, Edelgard, who is also an axe wielder. So I usually give Caspar the gauntlets, and then he can really let loose. Other than that, I usually just leave him at camp. Caspar's energy doesn't stop at the battlefield, though. He's everywhere at camp. Everything is either a mission or a competition for him. In every conversation he's in, he's almost always yelling or shouting, which has gotten him into trouble. There's not a lot of character growth with him, and I'm not asking every character to be traumatized by the things that may lurk under their bed, or asking for character growth so great it makes any newer Fire Emblem character be jealous.
Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers.
It's just, it feels like it could have been more. Like, there's more implied. Like, we have dumplings, and that feels like it's implying like there's a dumple, like something bigger. I would like to see that. We get a bit of depth with the Wild One and Petra or Hubert, but not much. And that's kind of how I feel about Caspar. Not much. Don't hate him, wouldn't mind if he tagged along somewhere, but I don't think he'd be on my front lines. Next up is Hubert. Hubert is a dark mage that was assigned to be Edelgard's retainer at a young age. I admire his dedication after all these years, but... His magic skills are okay, but if you have like Lysithea or Mercedes or even Hanneman with you, Hubert really just gets left over to do whatever Edelgard needs him to do. He's decently durable, so that helps with the leveling up where he can get better spells. I just feel like he falls flat, just barely though. His personality is really interesting to say the least. Hubert is smart, cunning, patient, logical, and has a bit of a sinister side to him. He does the job he's been assigned, and I get that like a lot of guards and retainers in Fire Emblem are born to do that job, like Frederick and Seizo come to mind. Again, I appreciate his dedication to the job, but just as the others, they never seem to think for themselves or take time for themselves. They constantly overwork themselves. Like, guys, stop the hamster wheel for a second. It's fine. I promise the hamster won't die. I feel like Hubert only stays with Edelgard because he has a crush on her, that and like his higher up position, so two birds with one stone. I feel like he's also some of Edelgard's reasoning. Edelgard sees that it's almost impossible for the Empire to lose, but Hubert has all sorts of precautions and backup plans. I don't know. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse by saying I admire Hubert's dedication, but wish it went beyond that he was born for this and that he may or may not have a crush on Edelgard. Maybe if he actually followed her because he believed in their goal, while it can be considered a noble cause, I just feel like we're missing something. Most of the mage's conversations are just him being creepy or vaguely threatening to people who don't follow Edelgard, like lost puppies. I don't know. I like Hubert in the sense of his craftiness, but that's about it. Petra is next on the list. Petra is a princess from a small neighboring country called Brigid, but is staying with the Empire where they enlisted her to the academy along with Edelgard. She is mostly either a sword or a lance unit, but Petra can multi-wield pretty well. She's fast, adaptable, and skilled. Once I get her to a master level, she was a decent unit. I did enjoy having her on my team, but if you have Felix with you, then she gets overshadowed. What I found more enjoyable were Petra's support conversations. While most of the princess's conversations were about her homeland Brigid, she's always open to learn more. There's just something kind and honest about her that a lot of other royals just don't have about them. She kind of reminds me of Ash a bit. Petra is one of those people where just seeing them happy or get excited is her, I don't know, like her energy is contagious. I would like to know more about her homeland or see her travel and experience new things she may not have seen before. Like, I want good things for her. Ferdinand von Eyre is next. Ferdinand is one of the top nobles of the Adrestrian Empire and carries that title with pride. Ferdinand is usually wielding a lance on horseback. He can be decent with a lance, but again, like some characters, he just barely misses the bus.
Hey SpongeBob, the bus is here!
I found his true skills can show when you give him any specialty weapon. His slightly higher stats can push using a weapon like a horse slayer or an armor crusher weapon like to the max. There's not much to say about the noble's combat. He's good, but he's not great. Could use some work, but he can use any weapon you give him and learn it decently well. He can be whatever you need him to be, basically. What I enjoyed most about Ferdinand, though, was him outside of battle. While he is a noble, he doesn't let that stop him from getting to know everyone, which some nobles like Lorenz don't do. Ferdinand just wants to make people happy. In this sense, he's a mix between Caspar and Petra. He has Caspar's energy and Petra's kindness, but sometimes that gets him into trouble. Something that surprised me was his backstory and the direction he was trying to go. This became super apparent in Three Hopes. I really enjoyed his story in Three Hopes and seeing more of the serious side of Ferdinand. I don't know, again, I'm bad with words. I just think he's cool, and I would like to see more or know more about him. Linhardt the Lazy is next. Linhardt is also noble, like Ferdinand, but I guess Ferdinand took all the energy out of the room because Linhardt does the bare minimum. This noble's life mostly consists of reading, crest research, fishing, and of course, naps in between all of that. All of this points to him being a somewhat decent mage, and he actually is. Linhardt is a pretty good mage and healer, so that's what I usually use him as. He was actually kind of like Mercedes in that sense. He was surprisingly durable for being a fat cat of a mage and can get the job done. Unlike Mercedes, though, off the battlefield, Linhardt is, well, energy conservant. He's laid back and doesn't really care what happens as long as he can come back and go to bed, which I think a lot of us can relate to. I can be lazy as well. He doesn't involve himself in things he doesn't have to, and again, doesn't care if the world slowly burns around him. He has a few lines that are just hilarious, though. Linhardt doesn't have the same deliveries as Felix does, but I don't care. Linhardt's I don't care energy is a lot different than some others, but it's still funny. Despite being a lump on a log, I find Linhardt really enjoyable. Next up is Dorothea. Unlike the past few characters, Dorothea isn't a noble, but an opera singer who's worked her way up from rags to almost riches. Dorothea is a hardworking student and does everything in her power she can to get things done. She's a mage by default, and not a bad one at that, though for some reason I found her more useful as a dancer or sword user. She's graceful on the battlefield, but surprisingly spicy off the battlefield. Dorothea has some bite to her, which I found funny. What do you mean? What do you mean you broke a man's arms? That's hilarious. Do it again, but this time, make it Bernadetta's dad. She doesn't put up with anything she doesn't like. The singer has a way of getting things she wants, sometimes a bit forcefully. The only thing she can't seem to find is someone to marry. This is where I have a problem with Dorothea. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to get married, but why she wants to get married is the issue. She wants to marry for money. I understand people get married for different reasons, and I get where she's coming from. She was poor, alone, and scared growing up, but the ones who usually have monies are nobles, and she hates nobles. In some ways, Dorothea is like a wild, overprotective older sister. I wish we saw more of that, but in the end, we ended up getting a lot more of the damsel in distress from her in the games following Three Houses. While Fire Emblem Heroes isn't the most in-depth game, it's really sad to see what Dorothea has developed into. It's just dancing and boys. Can we bring back the sassy, no-nonsense singer? I would love to see more of that. The next one on this list is Bernadetta, who's pretty much the opposite of Dorothea. Bernadetta is a no-nonsense noble. And by no nonsense, I mean that she tries to avoid much nonsense as possible. She spends the majority of her time in her room reading, writing, and drawing, which sounds a bit like me. I'm sure if Bernadetta had access to video games, she'd be playing Kirby and Animal Crossing late into the night. Even in battle, Bernadetta stays away from people as much as possible. She can shoot a bow with crazy accuracy. Once she gains a few levels and some confidence, this girl can take down several enemies all by herself. She's actually a fast learner too, so if you need to reclass her, you can. I thought it'd be interesting to see her as a wyvern rider, and she didn't do too bad in the time I had her up in the skies. I'm pretty sure she would have liked to stay up there though. A lot of Bernadetta's conversations are just a series of her fight or flight instincts kicking in, which, I will admit, it can be a bit annoying, but seeing how that flight kicks in is the hilarious part. Sometimes she just freezes like a frozen corn dog, and other times she can basically teleport. Her conversations with Hubert and Sylvain are absolute gold, and I'd recommend watching those if you can. I always enjoy seeing Bernadetta and whatever endeavor she may accidentally bring home. The top of the list shouldn't be a surprise, but it's the Empress herself, Edelgard. Edelgard grew up in the Empire with a very large family, which sounds nice. Imagine if they all had to share a bathroom. Her childhood took her all around the continent, but ultimately ended with her following her siblings and many other kids into the claws of those who slither in the dark. When Edelgard was finally freed, her path took her to lead the Black Eagle's house at the Academy. The relic axe Edelgard has later is a massive weapon that does insane damage, but I didn't want to use up all the durability and didn't have the resources for the upkeep, so I only used it on bosses. I mostly gave her brave axes and gauntlets. All I can say is she is an amazing unit. Off the battlefield, Edelgard is very formal like Dimitri, but she's not as open. When I was talking to her, I got some super suspicious vibes from her. She also didn't like anything I said, so The Empress is a strong leader, but very guarded, and not just by Hubert. I totally get the imprisonment thing and how that can destroy your trust in people, and that she's planning something revolutionary. But not having a leader that isn't approachable is not usually a good thing, or how she doesn't really console anyone besides Hubert about how things should look in the future. Her heart's in the right place, but the way she goes about it is not. She's pushing her beliefs onto other people. Violently, may I add. It's crazy because ultimately Dimitri and Claude have similar ideas of progression, and Byleth supports them all. This may sound like I don't like Edelgard, but she's such an interesting character. I want to know more about her family and her childhood. What happened to her when she was locked up? What were her dreams before, or were they still the same? What would her ideal life be? On the Black Eagle's route in Three Hopes, we did get to see more of this Edelgard. While I enjoyed the Edelgard experience in Three Houses, it was good to see her more open and relaxed as Three Hopes progressed. I would like to see more of that Edelgard if there's any more of those games, so that's my list on the Black Eagles. I hope you enjoyed. This list was a bit harder to make than some of the others. I think it's just because all the characters are interesting in their own way and honestly could all have their own side stories. Imagine how cool that would be if there was like a manga for each of the characters and how they ended up at the academy or what they did during the time skip. Before I go on a tangent, thank you again for watching and let me know who your favorite Eagles are, and Petunia and I hope to catch you next time. So, I've actually haven't had my full voice back in like 2.5 weeks now. It started off with just a normal cold, and then, oops, sorry, Petunia. And then after like 20, not even 20, for like 6 hours of the cold, that disappeared, and I woke up and I could not talk. Yeah, that wasn't fun. It's still not that fun, but, I mean, it is what it is, so hopefully, whenever these videos roll around again, I will have my full voice back, and it won't sound like I just woke up from a 10-year dirt nap. She spends the majority of her time in her room reading, writing, and drawing, which sounds a bit like me. Petunia. I don't really know, like, her energy is contagious. Petunia. I'm sure if Bernadetta had access to video games, she'd be playing Kirby and Petunia!